DNR Conservation Warden Ryan Lowry.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. It's nice to have you in here again and rejoining us after a year away.
Yeah, it's been a little while. I did get to come in here in the beginning of the fall for the fall season kickoff, so that was kind of cool. But no, I do love coming down to the radio station and talking online with our folks and our callers. It's a good time down here.
We're glad you're enjoying it and that we haven't completely scared you away. That's the important part.
No, I got the looks for radio, so it's all good.
I'm right there with you. But, of course, that is all neither here nor there. We do want to remind listeners that if you have any questions for Ryan, you can call in at 538-4341, of course, 715 to lead that one off. And is there anything you want to get out there to begin before we start taking the questions?
Yeah, I just want to start off with kind of how you do it every year. Biggest thing, everybody out there, is just to be safe. It's quite the event, quite the holiday, for lack of better terms. Having all of our Blaze Orange Army move out into the woods and the fields and get to go looking for some big tines here this opening weekend. There's going to be plenty of deer moving, plenty of people moving, and just remember those 4 safety rules at Tab K. So just biggest thing, keep your wits about you, and just stay as calm as you can, I guess. I know buck fever is a heck of a thing. Been there, done that. You go from a 70 resting heart rate up to a 150 when that 150 walks in. And that gets anybody jacked and tunnel vision. And I just want you to keep it in the back of your mind to just stay relaxed. It's going to help you make a good shot. And it's going to open your eyes to maybe something dangerous that might be involved in that situation where you might be taking a trophy deer. So.
All right, well, thank you. So I guess one of the first ones that we have up here is actually coming from in-house, our very own David Riesenweber. Want to throw out there that e-bikes are making cycling much easier than a normal forest walk to surveil the hunting grounds. Do you see them as a menace on public areas?
Nah, I really don't see their use as much as I thought I would. I know I talked to a handful of folks that are using their e-bikes to get back to their stand because deer really don't mind it as much as somebody trudging with their huge alpha burleys on through the crunchy leaves. That e-bikes sneak you away to get into your stand. And it's I wouldn't say it's really a menace at all, but you just got to be mindful where you can be using and utilizing those e-bikes. A lot of county properties, they got rules and ordinances against using technically motor vehicles off trails and through the woods on certain places, but for the most part those e-bikes are pretty minimal in terms of disturbance and what they might damage. So trust me, with my size 14 alpha burleys on through the woods, I'm chewing up a lot more turf than an e-bike tire. So it's I think they're pretty good pieces of equipment that hunters are utilizing. So,
and I'm definitely with you on that. Is they don't have quite the impact. At most they have those big wide tires on them, but it's not going to be as bad as say a 4-wheeler or a side by side, because some of those can really tear things up.
100%, yeah. And a lot of those public lands, they got special use permits for folks that might not be able to get into the woods as well, and they might need an off-highway vehicle like a UTV or an ATV to get back there. But I encourage those folks, if they can jump on an e-bike, it's going to be way, way less intrusive, way more quiet, and you're going to be able to sneak to your stand a lot better. So just check your local ordinances for the most part on where you can and cannot use it. When it comes to state land, a lot of our state natural areas are foot traffic only, but then, we got trails like the Buffalo River State Trail where you'd be totally fine taking an e-bike down to access some of that MFL property and some of that state land, say off the Buffalo River State Trail up out of Osseo, Strum area, Oliva.
Good to know. Thank you for all the information. So let's see. Now here's one that I'd seen in a little bit of my going around. Of course, we're all familiar with, and as we've been dealing with it for quite a while, with CWD. But another one that's become a little more noteworthy in recent years is EHD. Would you like to go into that at all?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about EHD. I'm no biologist, not smart enough for that. I can't even remember what EHD stands for. I think it's something that I really cannot pronounce. Honestly, when I look at it, it reminds me of hemorrhaging, but I don't think they're hemorrhaging out anywhere. Essentially, deer that are suffering from that disease become so emaciated and dehydrated, they seek water. It's kind of a telltale sign that a deer has EHD. They're usually seeking a water source, and they look quite sickly. Now CWD, on the other hand, when there's some succumbing to that disease, they can start to get emaciated, but the telltale sign that a deer may have CWD and is becoming symptomatic is that they don't really acknowledge your presence. That prion has started to chew into their brain at all, and it's just they're not aware. They're really not paying attention, and they just act a little different. EHD, you're going to see a lot more physical signs. That deer is going to look pretty run down, pretty hurt, and likely seeking a water source. And I know from recent calls and talking with a biologist is that we do have a pocket of EHD symptomatic deer, or deer that have been diagnosed with it over in Buffalo County, kind of like the Prague to, oh man, I'm losing my town over there. Prague area. We'll leave it at that. But EHD can pop up kind of anywhere. It's just one of those more noteworthy diseases, kind of like CWD, that deer get, and it kind of becomes a little more isolated problem with EHD, where CWD is more or less here to stay, and it's continuing its spread from southern Wisconsin into northern Wisconsin up the channels that it's at. So.
And you were pretty close. I did bring up your guys' official resources, because anybody who's looking for the nitty-gritty details of it, it's on the DNR website, and it's epizootic hemorrhagic disease.
Yeah, there's that hemorrhage. Yeah.
Yep,
yeah.
You're right on par with it.
Yeah, it's a mean-sounding word. So
yeah, it's not one you want to run into very often, but and that's why it's good to know that you guys are taking steps to keep the public aware, and do what you can when you can, because some of these, especially as CWD has shown us, fighting them is a very uphill battle.
Yeah, it is. It's not really so much a fight anymore. It's just a manage of what's, for lack of positive terms here, what's inevitable. This disease spread is for the most part inevitable, and you can go and see on our DNR webpage, as you referenced before, how CWD is spreading on the landscape with our interactive map. Our biologists and staff that get to make those maps have blocked off little areas as to how the disease is spreading, and it shows you how many deer have been tested and how many come back positive. And right here in Trempealeau County, we kind of got some alarming stuff. Right over by Pigeon Falls, I want to say this year 5 deer have been entered, and 5 and 3. So 5 deer have been tested, and 3 of them have come back positive over in that Pigeon Falls area. So this disease, like I said, spreading up from southern Wisconsin, that CWD, is making its channels up the heavily populated areas. And best science can say is that how it's spreading is more or less the nose-to-nose concentrated feeding areas is how that prion is getting spread from deer to deer. And if anybody knows the pigeon area, we got plenty of deer over there. And then one of the other avenues that it's skirting our listening area is that it's kicking up over by Mondovi, coming up through that Prague area. And it's reached all the way up into Eau Claire through like the Lowe's Creek corridor. So if you can envision how our valleys go in the area, it's kind of cutting up our main corridors where we have some woods amidst the cornfields, where you have higher deer densities, and it's kind of scooting up north that way. So, and of course, there's some other northern counties that have positives, but those are kind of more isolated, sporadic pockets of deer. But the wave, if you will, is kind of coming from southern Wisconsin and up through those channels. So.
And yeah, once some of those pestilences have taken hold, you're stuck with them to a good extent. Like you said, it's not much of a fight. It's just a dealing with what's here. Yeah, I
want to say one of the studies that we get to read is it gets brought to our attention from a wildlife management standpoint is that those prions, there's studies, I want to say in the UK, last I read, that those prions subsist in the soil where there is an infected site for up to 60 years. So. those folks, and unfortunately this is tied back to baiting. A lot of people, it's one of our number one violations out there is folks that just can't get away from baiting. They want maybe that easy way to see more deer, for one, at least does, and have an easy opportunity. And they continue to bait. In most counties here, it's illegal, and these folks have created a little hotbed. So if they do have an infected deer, you potentially are feeding them in a site that can be infectious for up to 60 years or better. So that's how this stuff is kind of here to stay, and that's why we kind of nip that baiting and feeding in the butt in these counties where this stuff is prevalent. We don't want to create these little hot zones where it could reinfect deer after deer after deer and become a quicker, faster problem with the population. And
as with that, I know this was something we touched on a bit last year, but it's a very fascinating bit of topic. And you know what, actually, we'll get into it right after we take a momentary break here to hear from some upcoming events as we continue our Q&A with Conservation Warden Ryan Lowry. And remember, if you want to call in and ask any questions of him up until 4 o'clock, you can reach us at 715-538-4341.
Are you ready to get outdoors? WHTL invites you to join us every Thursday morning at 8:05 for your weekly dose of nature's beauty right here in Wisconsin's heartland. Each week, a rotating panel of experts will share tips, tricks, and inspiration for exploring the great outdoors. From hiking trails to fishing holes, we'll cover it all. Get Outdoors brought to you by Petrick Service Station, Holton Sporting Goods, Black River Express, Moe Hardware, the Leva-Strum Rail Riders, the Elk Rod and Gun Club, Trimplow County Economic Development and Tourism, and the Associated Conservation Clubs of Trimplow County. Get Outdoors, Thursday mornings at 8:05 on your home for fresh air and sunshine, WHTL.
WHTL is your home for high school sports. This is Mitchell Speltz. Join us as we follow girls and boys teams from 14 local schools spanning 4 different conferences.
Friday, we bring you Dairyland Conference play as Independence Gilmanton welcomes Augusta to the Fieldhouse in Gilmanton. A 6:45 pregame, 7:15 opening tip.
Tune into 102.3 FM or live stream us at WHTLradio.com for all of the action. We're your hometown location for high school sports, WHTL.
And welcome back. This is Buck Davey being joined in the studios here in Whitehall by DNR Conservation Warden Ryan Lowry. Now, last year we talked a bit about, and I know he's out there probably listening, and that's a mutual friend of ours, Detective Wathke over there. And you guys have a flying approach to some of this with more reach than your normal aspects of how you cover ground.
You must be referencing some of our shiner and our bait flights that we do for catching some of our violators and figuring out what might be going wrong on the landscape.
I believe so. It's been a while, but that was a fascinating thing. Like, maybe more specifically, how has technology started to help you guys in going through your normal habits? Because there's a lot of wilderness out there to cover, and getting people that are willing to go out there and do this, it's not as easy as it once was.
Yeah. So, I get what you're saying. How we're using technology to kind of enhance the hunt. I mean, well, of course, what's really taken over the last decade is cellular cameras. I mean, they're really getting people involved, letting you know what's on the landscape without having to get out there and spread your scent and muck up your area per se. But drones have really taken a good foothold. I'd say in the last 5 years, folks are starting to utilize those to recover deer that might not have had the best shot placed on them. And there's folks that just kind of look at the lay of their land and throughout the summertime kind of get an idea of the topography and how their land may look with the use of drones. It's a fine line because drones are still considered an aircraft, and you can't hunt with the aid of aircraft. But outside of a hunting season, if you're just using a drone to look about your land and just try and get an idea of what you want to do, there's no harm in that. But when it comes to actually hunting, you have to separate any drone use with the hunt itself. So, in short, if you need to track a deer, You may use a drone, but you can't have any hunting equipment with you. So your bow, your gun, your crossbow, that's all got to be left at home, and you got to meet whoever's going to be manning that drone out on your property, and then try and hopefully locate that deer deceased. Now, if that deer is still on the hoof, they're not supposed to give you any information as to where that deer is for you to go in there, sneak in there and try and put another shot on it, or maybe jump it up out of its bed, because technically that'd be using aircraft to hunt deer, and you can't be using the aid of aircraft to hunt deer. So it's the laws really haven't caught up with technology yet, but it's just something that needs to come down the hatch. We always have that what's new section in our hunting regulations. Pay attention to that. If there's going to be any changes legislative wise, if they make any rule changes, we're going to be doing our efforts to put that information out on our DNR web pages so folks know any rule changes and things that might happen. There's not much for this year. The only new change we got on the books for this year that's really applicable to deer season is the fact that we went to the old deer management units for the northern and central forest zones. So we're able to scale it back from the broad zone that those used to be in, I'd say, for the last 15 years, and now we're going back to the old deer management units, which is kind of nice because it's more it focuses more on the terrain that used to be there rather than just lumping certain zones together. If you can think of some of the central forest zone, there's a lot of ag in some of that old zone, and now if you look at the deer management units, that kind of cuts out some of those agricultural areas, so they might have a little better opportunity at pulling a tag where it was pretty difficult to pull forest area tag. So be sure to look over your map and know where you're hunting and know what antlerless tags you need for those deer management units.
Excellent to know. And of course, another aspect with this is, speaking of tags, we recently had a unlucky individual coming out of town here have a quick run-in with one of the deer crossing, because we got the river across, we got this nice bit of forest here.
Yeah.
And this one's a more general question, but should someone run into a deer, and this one was hobbling around, it was trying to get going, eventually did, but say it's not completely put out of its misery, what's the proper operating procedure that people should follow?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I personally get a lot of these phone calls too, kind of when I'm in and out of the area. But really, you should be giving the local authorities a shout first, the local sheriff's department, local police department. For the most part, especially if you're in a bigger city, they're always going to have folks on. Where I might be, I'm covering 3 counties. I might be all the way north of Eau Claire, scooting into Chippewa County to help those guys, and I'm a ways out, and it's just not realistic or fair to the animal to rely on somebody to come put them out. Their misery, it's a lot better to get a hold of your local authorities, and they can euthanize it, especially if it's within 50 feet of the roadway center. Now, if that deer happens to pull itself out into a field where by all means you can legally harvest it and it's within legal hours, and you have a tag for it, feel free to harvest it. There's nothing that says that your tag's only good for healthy deer. You can shoot wounded deer, even if they are wounded by a vehicle, and then you can just register it with your own tag. But really, if one's piled up alongside of the road, just get a hold of your local authorities. And if it's inevitably killed by a car, you can phone that in. This goes true for deer, bear, and turkey. You can phone those car kills into the DNR and get a permit for those, and just take them with a car kill permit. You don't need to burn up a tag to salvage that meat, or have somebody else come out and salvage that meat. So but if it's anything if you're out in the boonies and you got a deer kind of scraping itself along and you really don't know how it was wounded and you finish it off, just be sure that you have to have a tag for that critter in that situation. So
that's all excellent information to get out there. I wish I would have known a few weeks ago when that happened, but luckily the gentleman did he called down here right to the courthouse, so we had the process started, but then thing got up and took off into the woods because, they're hardy animals.
Shoot. Yeah, I mean, just look at how many deer are hobbling around out there on 3 legs, and they move good and fast on 3 legs. They are super tough. That John Deere quote, "Nothing runs like a deer," holds true for our Bambis out there in the woods, no doubt. But just for your folks wondering about salvageable deer too, if you are looking to salvage some of these deer or want to be on a list, feel free to reach out to a lot of your local sheriff's departments. I know a lot of those keep kind of a running list of deer that are salvageable. They might give some of those folks a call, and then you can just go and scoop up that deer as long as you call it in as a car-killed deer, deer, bear, or turkey. You can scoop that up and get that and utilize that carcass. So...
Excellent information, as always. Now, I guess another one would be, you kind of touched on it with deer, if they end up in a field due to getting struck, but it isn't always the case. Sometimes, you hit a deer and it runs onto who knows what land, and, you don't want to just make haste and go trampling across the plains, and you end up on some land that you weren't supposed to be on. How often do you run into disputes like that, and how do you help to resolve them, or does that fall under a different jurisdiction?
Yeah. I see what you're getting at here. That whole trespassing side of things, and it's a tricky thing for Wisconsin, and I'm sure that a lot of you folks who watch Rut Report or look at the Rut Report on Facebook and have heard of friends and people and know people, I'm right there with you. We see a lot of unfortunate things when it comes to trespassing, and just to put it out there, there's no law in Wisconsin that supersedes trespassing, so there's no duty to retrieve by any means crippled game onto somebody else's private property. If you hit a line, you got to do what you can to get permission to enter that private property. If a landowner says, no way, I want to feed the coyotes, well, that's their decision. That's their ability to do that. There's really nothing that I can do or a deputy or anybody else can do that forces their hand. Now, sometimes I've had folks ask me, hey, so-and-so, are they good people? Should I let them track their deer? I've had landowners call me, and I'll always advocate for doing the ethical thing for the critter. Those coyotes, they eat plenty well off of the gut piles out there, so I'm always for getting somebody their deer if they can see it dead in a field, or if they, if a landowner just needs that reassurance that they're doing the right thing. I'd advocate for recovering the deer, or just telling them to join whoever might be looking on their property to recover a deer. I mean, I'm always advocating for recovery, but if they say no, if by whatever means that they have thought of, if they don't want you on their land, nobody can force their hand to let you out there. So, but when it comes to trespassing, I'll carry on with this topic. We wardens, we only enforce trespassing as it relates to recreational vehicles like snowmobile and ATV. So just your generic hunter trespassing, maybe a lost hunter scooting onto your property, or maybe a hunter trespassing onto your property to recover a deer, that's got to be handled by the local authorities. So whether you're in a city's municipality, reach out to the city PD, or if you're in county, you got to reach out to the sheriff's department when it comes to trespassing, and they're going to be your law enforcement contact for those issues. So, and in Wisconsin, I talked to a handful of folks that do trespass, or they'll admit to trespassing to me in a different kind of contact, and they always jump to, well, I didn't see any signs. Well, in Wisconsin, you don't need signs on your property for it to be considered trespassing. Nobody needs to go plaster their boundary with signs. It's on the person walking around in the woods to know where that boundary is. So.
Oh, again, that is a great covering of a lot of very important things, because, we run into those cases. You can't always be helped. It's you get caught up in the heat of the moment, and you just it's right there, and you just got to try and work with what hopefully your neighbors have a good standing with them, and we'll have to see. But again, thank you. Again, this is DNR Conservation Warden Ryan Lowry. We are going to take a momentary break here and then check in on the weather We'll continue with the Q&A after that up until 4 o'clock. Again, anyone who has any questions, we'd love to hear them. We'd like to get some more ideas and thoughts out there, and you have plenty of time to do so up until 4 o'clock. You can reach us at 715-538-4341 here on 102.3.
Be here for a fantastic border battle when the Minnesota Vikings visit Lambeau Field to take on the Packers here on WHTL.
Green Bay Packers football is brought to you by International Ingredient Corporation, Burley & Bucks, Gross Motors, Starwood Rafters, Howard's Hardware Hank, MPH Flooring and more, and Central Builder Supply.
Tune in Sunday for a 10 o'clock Packers pregame, a noon kickoff. The Green Bay Packers, the Minnesota Vikings, an NFC North Division battle here on your home for Packers football, 102.3 FM, WHTL.
And now this live look at weather. We are currently sitting at about 41 degrees on the Central Builder Supply weather post. Overcast right now, and there is a less than 30% chance of some very isolated drizzles going pretty much all the way until 3 a.m. tonight, as lows also drop to around 35, so hopefully we shouldn't see too much of it freezing. That chance for drizzle may pop up again around 7 a.m. tomorrow, but otherwise it should be a mostly cloudy sky with a high near 49 degrees. Tomorrow night, partly cloudy, lows around 26. Then on to Friday, sunny skies and a high near 45. Friday night, partly cloudy, lows around 20 with calm winds, and they're not giving me a direction until we look to Saturday morning, where it could be about 5 to 8 miles per hour, becoming southerly. That's been a look at your weather forecast. We are now going to resume as our Conservation Warden Ryan Lowry is in studio with us, answering any questions you may want to throw out there. Otherwise, me and him will keep bantering back and forth as we go through it. And, it may be out on the forests, or, some hunters that go out into the swamps around here. It's always fun to chase them swamp bucks. As quiet as they are, they almost feel like they have a shroud over them half the time. But, thankfully we don't have any mountains. That would be the worst. And, it's not like we have islands around here, but could you hunt off an island in Wisconsin?
Yes, you sure can. Islands, I actually grew up hunting islands out, I think it's called Happy Pasture and Brush Island out in Dunn County, just off the Chippewa River. Pretty solid places to hunt. I think one of the islands is privatized now. I forget. I haven't got out there in quite a few years, but and I get a lot of folks wondering if they can shoot deer that are crossing water or in water. If you got permission to be there, if that land's open for hunting and you got a deer crossing, say if you have a little pond and you got a deer that's crossing, swimming across that pond, I don't advocate for shooting a deer as it's in the water, because that's just going to be a tough recovery. But if you're getting him when he's standing on the other side of that bank, if that's a safe shot, if you got permission to be there, permission to shoot there, have at it. Just make sure that it's not on land of somebody else's. So, and in Wisconsin, as long as your feet are wet, you're good to go. But once you start getting onto any of those sandbars or parts of those islands, they're all owned. So you just got to know where you're standing. So, and we got a lot of apps out there that make it really easy as to, if you want to know if that's part of your friends or hunting party's property or not, or your lease. That Onyx, it's a pretty sweet tool. We use it work-wise. I use it personally. And then the DNR interactive maps, if you just take screenshots of those, if you don't want to pay for a subscription, those give you a good idea of public lands that are open too. So.
Okay, good. And, you mentioned in personal use. So would some of those be, say, the Bureau of Land Management kind of setups?
Yeah. So there is some BLM land in the area, but a lot of it's county, a lot of it's more local. So county and state lands out there. I can only think there's only one BLM island out there on the Chippewa, and I think one on the Mississippi that I know of offhand. But a lot of those are county or state properties, state natural areas. So, and most counties, state natural areas, state parks, all that stuff, you can hunt that as long as you're not in a physical park itself. If it's designated as a park, I can't speak for all 72 counties we have, but for the most part, all 72 counties, you cannot hunt in a park unless they make a special exception, and that goes for state lands to the park itself, like campground parts of our state parks. You can't hunt, but certain parks will have designated hunting areas outlined on their map, and I want to say, I don't have it written down, I want to say that always opens up for specific state park properties. It always opens up the 15th or 16th of November. So it's always just before the deer season. And if a property does have places that you can hunt, they'll have it outlined in a map showing folks where they can go and legally hunt those properties. So
that could be pertinent here. You did talk about how some of the land stretching up, because you cover 3 counties, was it? Yeah.
So my area is Eau Claire County, and then I got a little bit of northern Trempealeau County, northern Jackson County, and it's a bit of turf, but we got some help coming. Our team, our Lower Chippewa River team, is going to be full up here starting 2026. So there'll be another warden in the Eau Claire area. So we got a lot of guys in the area, guys and gals in the area, and a lot of folks to cover this turf, but more help is always appreciated. So it just allows us to do a little bit more patrol, be a little bit more responsive out there. Because I'm sure not many of you listeners out there have seen much for wardens on the landscape. We're kind of like ghosts out there, just like that big 150 you've been chasing. But if you are looking to get a hold of us, feel free to jump online, find out who your local warden is, and save that contact info in your phone. You're never going to know when we might be able to help you out, or you might need to make a call to us. And feel free to write down our hotline number too, and be sure to call on those tips if you do see something squirrely out there. I got those numbers handy if I can just scroll down to it.
And of course, if you want to call in here at the station, again, you can, or you can message us on the Facebook page for WHTL, or send an email to steve@whtlradio.com. All options available for you if you want to ask Ryan any questions. But for contacting you?
Yeah. So for contacting conservation wardens on the hotline, it's 1-800-TIP-WDNR, but the actual number, for those of us that don't have those fun keypads anymore, it's 1-800-847-9367. Once again, that's 1-800-847-9367. And I also had a little note here that I tossed in this morning. We had some shuffling around for some of us local wardens, and for those of you hunting and recreating in Buffalo County, you guys got a new gray shirt warden in your station, because Warden Bob Jumbeck retired here this past summer, and you got Warden J.J. Redmond scooting down from the Dunn County area. That's what he had before, and he is going to be your warden for Buffalo County. And J.J. Redmond, if you all have a second and want to jot this number down, if you're hunting in Buffalo County, he can be reached at 715-492-7701. Once again, 715-492-7701. And he's a heck of a warden, pretty decent guy, and he's got a fun new county to learn, and he's in some bigger deer turf. But Dunn County's got some big deer. Buffalo County's got it beat just a little bit for their trophies per hunter. So
it's certainly made it a destination kind of place for a lot of years, and you do see a decent amount of out-of-state hunters in some of those regions due to the draw, and we of course want to always welcome them in. We don't actually need to be upset about it, folks. It's the state rivalries can be fun until boils over into real life. You don't want that.
Yeah. State rivalries are always great when it comes to sports. Be sure to give those Bear fans some heck for being in first place. They're not going to sit there long. But when it comes to folks coming over and enjoying our resource, more power to them. It's awesome that we can draw some folks in from out of state to come and utilize our resource. I really do like seeing that, but just be sure to give them enough crap. Not that they're hunting, but maybe who they choose to support when it comes to football, basketball, hockey, whatever have you. So
it is something that is kind of nice. Not necessarily even a question, but we all are wearing the same blaze orange mostly.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of, there are some logo emblazoned oranges out there, but for the most part, it's just we're all hunters. We're all trying to take in the bounty that is available to us out there. And so everybody, hopefully, ideally plays nice, but things like that can happen from time to time. Now, however, we do want to take another brief break here, and we'll get back into the Q&A session with Conservation Warden Ryan Lowry. Remember, you can call us again at 715-538-4341 right after this quick message.
Attention sports fans, are you ready for heart-pounding action? Jaw-dropping plays and unforgettable moments?
Well, then look no further than WHCL Radio, your ultimate destination for high school sports in western Wisconsin. So grab your popcorn, settle in, and relive the most exciting high school sports moments. Visit our website at WHCLradio.com to listen to or download your favorite broadcasts. Our audio archive is updated weekly, so check back often to find the game you're looking for. And hey, if podcasts are your thing, you'll find our game broadcasts wherever you listen to podcasts. WHCL Radio, where the passion of high school sports comes alive.
And welcome back. This is Buck Davey, your host for Happy Hour, though we are being interjected with a very special guest as Conservation Warden Ryan Lowry is joining us in studio. And that even I'm having to make sure I get that one right, because you guys have changed a little nomenclature over the years on us. And it's not just we're not supposed to say just warden. It's interesting how that has all shifted a bit.
We don't mind what you call us. I mean, we do have some fun nicknames out there. I won't get into any too graphic ones out there, but I do like Squirrel Cop. I do find that a little funny. Twig Pig. If you want to keep that line going, it's all good. But we'll still respond, whatever you want to call us. So, So moving on with some of the topics that I wanted to hit here, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about kind of one of the more black eyes that the hunting community catches this time of year with so many people out there harvesting deer. Maybe some folks are a little bit have a little bit more prowess when it comes to butchering than others, but some, they might just be doing what they can, and not really knowing what they're doing, or they might get too intimidated when it comes to butchering whatever they got, and maybe it spoils. Then they go and toss it on the landscape. Well, that gives all of us hunters a bad look. I just want to encourage those folks and whoever out there that does their own at-home butchering is we got plenty of places to drop those carcasses once you're done with them. And in the immediate area, I'm going to list a few. And mind you, these dumpsters are DNR and club supported. A lot of those are supported and funded by our local rod and gun clubs, our associated club associated clubs put it together and raise the funding to have these dumpsters for us hunting folks out there. So it's a pretty good service. But for this immediate area, we've got a dumpster located at the Eau Claire Service Center, which unfortunately is under construction right now, and it's at the lower part of the service center if you're familiar with it, but you can't miss it, or just step outside of your vehicle. You'd be able to smell it and your nose will take you right to it. But it's right up there at Eau Claire Service Center. Black River Falls Service Center, we got the Strum Rod and Gun on Highway 10. Mondovi area, the Mondovi Conservation Club, that's right off of Highway 10. Elk Rod and Gun off of Highway 121, Trempealeau County Sportsman's Club down there on First Street in Trempealeau. Then we got Wamandy area has a dumpster off County Road E. And all these are mapped out on our CWD, one of our CWD pages on our DNR page. You just got to jump onto the main DNR page and type deer carcass dumpster. And I think if you navigate the search, it'll pull you up to an interactive map for all of Wisconsin, and it'll show you where you can discard your carcasses and get your deer tested for CWD. Drop off those heads at those little orange kiosks if you haven't noticed them. And moving on with that, I want to just highlight some of the area kiosks for those CWD tests. You got one in Arcadia, Augusta, Independence, Taylor, and at Toad's Cove. So just between Arcadia and Trempealeau there, right at the four corners. I forget what that place is called, that little village is called. But yeah, pretty good spread of those kiosks out there. And then most of those dump sites that I listed before have kiosks for getting your deer tested. So we just want to provide that opportunity for all you folks that want to know what you're eating and make sure that it isn't positive, and it also helps us track what we have for positives on the landscape as well.
That especially is good information to have out there, and all the resources that you guys have available to you being exceptional in that. And I do want to throw out there, you kind of touched on, the squirrel cop thing. It reminded me of something, not throwing it out there, Nate, not trying to be derogatory here at all. I respect you guys. I know what you're doing is kind of a thankless job a lot of times. But, it stuns me how when you're out in, say, a damp forest, which we might be dealing with these drizzles and things like that, or if you're, trying to hunt a swamp, it's like you can summon creatures, whether it's just a token squirrel or bird, but they pop up on you. And some hunters I know will take the initiative and, well, they'll, waste a bullet on them. What aspects do we have for crossover hunting? If you have a small game license during deer season, is that a valid thing, or is that something you still have to stay away from because it's a crossover time?
Yeah, so I get what you're getting at there. We used to have season breaks. I can't remember when that really switched over, but I remember you couldn't deer hunt archery-wise before the gun deer, like the day before the gun deer season. Hunting had to kind of take a little pause there, but all of our seasons run concurrent now, and as long as you've got the tags for it, as long as you got the license for it, have at it, and if it's by whatever legal means that you can harvest an animal, have at it. Just because it's the deer season doesn't mean that you got to stop small game hunting. Doesn't mean that if you got a coyote scooting past that you can't harvest that coyote. There's a lot of folks that, they kind of have a vendetta per se toward coyotes, and they'll take a coyote that's scooting across their field. But yeah, if you got the license, if you got the tags for it, have at it. I think, we got a bobcat season on too, and I've never seen one while sitting in the stand, but hey, mate, you might get lucky. Just be mindful. Some of those high-powered rifles, you're going to be poking a bigger hole into a critter, and if it's a pelt that you want scun up, if it's something, a critter you want put up, now taxidermists, they can do really great work. They can do a lot with stitches, but you don't want to give them extra work. They're already overrun as is. So just be mindful. I'm not saying you can't do it. Not saying that stitches don't work and still make a good mount, but I don't know. Know what you're doing if you're taking an odd six toward, say, a squirrel. Not really any law violations there, but man, it's just not really respectful, and I don't know what you'd recover off a squirrel if you're able to hit it. So, that's a good question. Yeah, our seasons really don't end, and be mindful if you are, if you're deer hunting, of course, you got to have your blaze orange or fluorescent pink. But if you are hunting anything else, small game, whatever have you, during a gun deer season, in archery hunting, whatever you're doing, if you're hunting during a gun deer season, you do have to have your blaze and fluorescent pink on. The only thing that is exempt to that is if you are waterfall hunting. So I guess if you see the birds flying and that's more your thing, have at it. But you don't need that blaze orange requirement when you're waterfall hunting. So
ideally, probably not too much crossover there, as you mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. Taking a deer on the water, you said, is not actually legal, but it's certainly not sporting.
It's legal.
Oh, yeah.
It is legal, but it's just, I just question how somebody's going to recover it if they happen to shoot a deer that's swimming. Just have a plan. You got to make a reasonable effort to try and recover your game. Don't trespass, but if you're shooting a swimming deer, that's just going to be a tough recovery. That, and you have to be thinking, once again, with tab K, what's your target and what's beyond it. We all know that rounds can skip in certain situations. I'm not a ballistic specialist by any means, but I am pretty sure rounds can still skip on water. So if you're shooting flat, shooting on water, you might get skip, and who knows what'll happen with that round. You just want to be safe. We've had some very unusual instances and lucky instances in the area. One of our local taxidermists a few years back, driving on County Road G, just in Jackson County, ended up having his vehicle shot by an errant round on the second day of the gun deer season. Ripped right through the hood of his vehicle in an engine compartment, and it was coming at an angle that, had he been milliseconds ahead or speeding just a little bit more, that would have been coming through the driver's window, so at an angle. So it's people at Hunt Ridges, this more mountainous country that we got here. We got some pretty steep areas that if you're shooting deer that are running those ridges, like, and you miss, or even if you get a pass through and through, like, that round's traveling some ways. So just be mindful of that.
Oh, most certainly. I still remember very vividly getting kind of warnings by, speaking of waterfowl, during hunter safety back in middle school. I believe it was Wathke and Sorge that taught our class and talked about sitting down around Mississippi River and you're just feeling the BBs land on the brim of your hat. Thankfully, not a lot of speed to them, but a lot of folks have different approaches to what they think is a safe shot.
Right. Yeah, and with that bird shot, that stuff carries a ways. So
thankfully, it doesn't do much more than land on you at that range, but it really puts it in perspective. That's for sure. And I'm glad you emphasized the be aware of your target. That's especially, you mentioned earlier, when you get into the really bluffy areas towards Buffalo County and things like that, you don't want to be taking those shots at very high angles.
Yeah, they're going a ways if you're missing. So.
All right. Well, we are at a point where we can get another quick break in here because it's pretty near time to cover the weather, and that not great looking for the start of the season. I at least say that. But again, this is Buck Davey. I'm being continually joined for at least another 15 or so minutes by Conservation Warden Ryan Lowry. So stick around, and we'll have some more right after this.
Some radio stations just play music. But at WHTL, we do way more than that. We've got an award-winning website, WHTLradio.com, loaded with local events, high school sports radio broadcast archives, and so much more. Connect with us on social media to find Facebook Live videos, behind-the-scenes content, and interviews that you won't find anywhere else. We're not just spinning hits. We're connecting a community. WHTL, your hometown location.
And resuming back in with a weather check here on your hometown location. 41 degrees currently on the Central Builder Supply weather post. There is a less than 30% chance of drizzle throughout the area, potentially going tomorrow up until 3 a.m., maybe even 7 a.m., but nothing beyond 30%. Also, your overnight temps are looking to be 35 degrees. As for your Thursday officially, expect overcast skies and a high near 49. Tomorrow night, partly cloudy with lows down to 26. Then as for Friday, sunny skies and a high near 45. Friday night, still cloud cover, lows of 20, but a calm wind, no direction. We'll have to wait till we get closer to it so we can decide what Saturday itself will look like, though, is mostly sunny, high near 49, and winds becoming out of the south with 5 to 8 miles per hour is their guess. We'll get closer to it and we'll give you better breakdowns of it. But for right now, that wraps up your check-in on your weather forecast here on WHTL. We now resume with our Q&A, thanks to Conservation Warden Ryan Lowry. And we have some time here. If anybody has any questions you want to sneak in before the buzzer, it's 715-538-4341. Now, while we still have some time with you here, though, is there anything else you want to make sure to get across to the listeners?
I just want to while I'm thinking about it, I want to say that weather, it doesn't sound too bad. We had a blizzard a couple of years ago. That's not the most fun thing to sit through, but a little mist, little misting out there, and then somewhat of a cool morning start. I mean, that's going to be nice. It's going to get deer moving. It's going to get them on the hoof. Not to mention the Blaze Orange Army scooting about, booting them up out of their beds. I think it'll be a good opener. I had high hopes for all the folks out there. I'm envious. I got to live vicariously through you guys as I make contacts throughout the season, because I'm going to be getting up early to work, not to hunt, unfortunately. So, scooting on to some of the main topics that I have here, I do want to stress tree stand safety. Now, I grew up, and my whole life I've been a public land hunter. I jump around a pile of different spots, climb up different trees, and whenever you're getting into a new area, I mean, some of those trees are a little more tricky than others. You might be doing something a little goofy to get around a knot in the tree, and with those climbers, I've had the bottom slip out for me too in the past, and it's just be sure that all your gear is in good working order, and you're prepared. You're not doing it last minute or the day of, just rushing out there, because if you're rushed, if you're unprepared, that's when bad stuff happens, and you don't want to tempt karma, because if anything does go wrong, it usually goes wrong when you don't want it to. So wear your safety harnesses. Make sure you're secured to the tree. Make sure your firearm is good and secured too. If you pull the late night hanging with your friends, and you got your firearm sitting on your lap and you're dozing off, get that thing hung up on anything that's a little more supportive. Trust me, I've been there. I've been dozing off before, and you don't want to lose a firearm. You don't want to lose a bow just because you didn't hang it on your hook. So. Just be as safe as possible and keep that stuff in mind. So it's better to say you missed one because you couldn't get to your rifle in time, rather than you dropped your rifle 15 feet down onto the ground and now you got to wonder if your scope's still good.
All right. Well, we do have a caller. We're going to go to the first line here. And Ralph, you're on there. What would you like to know?
Well, I just got a question on, I got a Bobcat tag coming up at 26th of December.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to find the actual rules and regulations on everything. Just want to make sure if you can shoot a Bobcat while calling them in.
Yep.
And if you can call it in the evening to shoot, like after dark under moonlight.
Yeah, so Bobcat are one of our only predators that you cannot call at night. I don't know the specific reasoning as to why you cannot hunt Bobcat at night, but you can't night hunt Bobcat, but you can call them in and you can shoot them with a rifle.
Okay, that's answers my question. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you to Ralph for calling in and let us getting some questions rolling here, because me and Ryan could talk about all this kind of stuff and many other things all day, but we're trying to keep very on topic with the hunting seasons and things like that, and going back to the safety thing, I do have to completely concur because, you go trampling through the woods and by the time you get to your stand, you're tapped. And you don't want to be toppling over after something like that. And then another one, it is deer season in Wisconsin, and I'm assuming that there probably isn't, but you know what? I'll ask. That's the perfect time for it. Probably some regulations saying not to be intoxicated while hunting.
100%. Yeah, you cannot go armed while intoxicated. Can't hunt while intoxicated. So do your best to sober up. If you got to sleep in the vehicle as your buddy drives you to the spot, have at it. Don't grab that gun. Take a nap in the truck before you get out there. Sober up. Be sure that you got all your wits about you, because we want everybody to be safe out there. And no fancy buck out there at the best times you'd ever seen in the world is ever gonna supersede an incident that somebody gets hurt. So, excuse me.
And of course, that's should be more than obvious, but there is kind of maybe a push is not the way to say it, but it's made more okay by some pop culture aspects, whether it be, funny movies, songs, things like that. It seems to give you the idea that it's something people should be all right with. And, we're not innocent of it here. We have songs like the Turdy Pointer, which pretty much make it seem like that is the way guys are out there hunting. And really, it's irresponsible not to be too mean about it.
Right. 100% is. And for those serious about hunting out there, those aren't the guys that are going to be out there partying too hard. They're the ones that are going to be getting their sleep. They're going to be getting out early into the stand. They're going to be prepared to harvest that target critter that they're after. So why wouldn't you want to treat it more serious like that and maybe leave the partying and celebration till when you're done hunting? That's I know Wisconsin's got that culture. It's got that stigma per se. Just you don't have to fall into it. If you want to have fun, just call it quits at a certain time that you're going to be fine in the morning. And if you do hit it a little too hard, if your buddies are giving you enough heck and you're having a good time, just head out there late. It ain't worth it. You head out there late. What is it going to be? Almost 50 degrees this weekend? You're going to have a more comfortable sit anyways. So take yourself an afternoon sit instead of getting out there right in the morning while you might be a little intoxicated. So, I can't stress it enough. Firearms and alcohol do not mix. Just be sure to keep that safety forefront of your mind.
Definitely good advice to be taken, and not trying to be too harsh on anybody, but hey, just because we can go and do that at tailgating at Lambeau, that's one thing, or happy hour at the bars. It's don't take it into the woods. Nothing good can come of that.
Right.
But of course, we are starting to wind down here. We got about another 5 minutes left. Any other questions we got that people want to get across? Remember, you can reach us at 715-538-4341. And any final things you want to make sure you get in?
I'm going over my list that I put together. Yeah, like you said, I could talk for quite some time about everything. As I'm looking over my list here, I do just want to say, folks, I do wish you all the best. I love seeing those good success stories on the old public pages out there on Facebook. Folks having their first buck, biggest buck, a good story. Guys, everybody out there, you're out there to make some memories this weekend. And I want to hear some good memories. I want to see some good memories. And like I said, I'm living vicariously through y'all. And I want to see good times had by everyone, safe times at that too. So it's a fun event. I really enjoy this time of year. And I hope I have a bunch of positive contacts. And not just because I don't like doing paperwork, because, contrary to what everybody likes to think out there, I don't think there's a single conservation warden or law enforcement officer that really enjoys paperwork. We're not English majors, we went to school for other things. We want to protect people, make sure folks are being safe and have good encounters out there. Enforcement's always something we have to do, not something we sit and enjoy, flat out enjoy to do. So be safe, do things right, do things legal. And if you have any questions or if something comes up, feel free to call it in. We're always just a phone call away.
And of course, we still have, a bit of time. We're looking for anybody who wants to pitch in. Otherwise, we're going to start winding it down. But again, we want to thank you so much, even if that isn't completely it, though, because we know it's a busy time of year for you, to put it mildly, especially ramping up into all this. And we want to thank you for what you and your compatriots are all doing out there, because without you and your peers, it's a little more chaotic in the woods, and that's the last thing we need.
Yeah, for sure. As I'm looking over my notes here, I do want to mention registering deer. That's changed over the handful of years. You used to be able to go register in person, and there's some folks that might not be astute to doing it all online on their phone, or might run into problems. I just talked to a gentleman yesterday who realized after getting his CWD a negative result back that he had failed to register that deer, failed to complete the registration process. I'm going to put it on all you young folks, all you folks out there that are real astute with your electronics. Feel free to help out that older generation. Make sure that they get their critters registered, their deer registered by 5 p.m. the day following recovery, because that's required. But if mistakes happen, if mistakes pop up, feel free to self-report. Let us know. Don't try and hide it. Don't try and think, oh shoot, if I register this late, I'm going to get in trouble. We have a lot of discretion to utilize in these situations, and we understand that mistakes happen. Shoot, I butcher my own deer, and I've been pretty close to making this mistake too. You get to hang that deer, quartering it up, getting it into coolers, freezers, whatever have you, and then as you're laying down, hitting the hay that night, you realize like, oh shoot, I didn't register that deer. And then had you let that bleed into the next day, you might have a busy day at work the next day, and then you're going to forget about it, jumping on your phone and getting it done, or calling it in by 5 p.m. Mistakes happen, but just get it done ASAP so you don't forget it. Or if you have forgotten it and realize it just a little bit late, call it in, self-report. It's just the right thing to do, and then it makes our enforcement decision easier, because we're all human too, and we can understand when mistakes are made.
And, you touched on something there that listener Shane Knisley threw out there. Not just respecting the traditions of it, but there's been new changes to mentoring youths in the hunt.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool opportunity to be able to mentor kids out there. I do have my notes on youth mentoring. I can't think of too many recent changes with that, but just be sure that you got your kids within arm's reach, and when you're kids and adults, if you're mentoring adults too, they got to be within arm's reach. But one of the newer changes, I want to say as of I think 5 years ago, you both can have firearms now. So before that, it used to have to be one firearm between the both of you. Now each person can have a firearm if you both have tags and are able to be hunting. So the only thing, I think that's the only thing that I can think of changing off the recent thing with mentorship and youth hunting. I can't think much else with that.
No, that's completely reasonable. For me though, I'm a bit of a lapsed hunter. I'll flat out admit that. This is all a very new thing, just even in the past 10 years, how that has changed, because youth hunting was nothing like this. I got screwed over, to be completely honest. My birthday is at the beginning of December, so back in my day, and old enough to say that now technically, I could not hunt my first year actually being of age, because I was just after the hunting season. That has all changed even since then, and it's I also want to just throw my appreciation out there, because now my nieces, I know, will actually get to hunt despite being born just after the season. Do you know how some of this came about with making the youth hunting so much more accessible?
I'm not too sure. I'm sure it's a legislative push by some means, and some kids develop faster than others, and if their parents and their mentor feel that it's their time to be out in the woods and harvesting deer, that's their call. It's their parent call. Now they can do that legally now through the mentorship rules. They don't have to wait till they have hunter safety. They can get out there with a mentor and have their chance of making some memories when they're pretty young. I got to grow up, unfortunately, not being able to hunt until I took hunter safety, and I was a deer pusher, doing a lot of deer drives with a stick before I could actually carry a gun. So I definitely could have had more deer before I took hunter safety. Had that mentorship been a thing, but it's really cool to see the youth getting into it, and those opportunities out there for young folks now.
So what are some of the general rules? Like you said, within arm's length now is a newer change, and both having a weapon.
Yeah. It's always been within arm's reach when you're mentoring, but it's being able to have each of you have a weapon. It's no longer just one weapon between the two of you. So it's pretty cool. So you can both share a pretty fun hunting opportunity. And I've got a friend this year that was able to harvest a really decent buck after their kid harvest their largest buck. So just because they're able to hunt side by side, and luckily the crossbow made that a little more possible. So a little quicker on the reload, and be able to react to a satellite buck coming into the one that his kid shot. So yeah, great opportunities to be had by all. Just want everybody to be safe and have a great time.
All right, we'll pause one moment here and acknowledge that you are listening to 102.3 FM out of Whitehall, Wisconsin, WHTL. And, of course, we are about to wrap things up with DNR Conservation Warden Ryan Lowry. We are just past 4 o'clock here, so we're about to bid you adieu. Anything you want to say before we head out?
Everybody just have fun, make great memories, and be safe.
All right. Well, that'll wrap things up here. We're going to get into our 4 o'clock check-in on sports, thanks to Floor Crafters of Onalaska.
Do you know what's really helpful when you're starting the process of redoing the flooring in your house? Seeing the flooring you want in your room. And you can do that by going